I'm going to show you how to use a lifeline. And a lifeline is a really handy thing to have, not so much for this kind of small stockinette knitting, but it's really good to use if you're doing any kind of intricate work like lace work, or you've got a zillion stitches on your needles and you're doing something complicated. And the reason that you use it is because if you do make a mistake, you have the lifeline in place and you can just simply take your work off the needles and unravel your work, and it'll stop at the lifeline. So a good place to use your lifeline is at the end of pattern repeats, so that if you do have to take out your knitting, you know exactly where you are when you start back knitting. You'll know you're ready to start a new repeat. And they're very easy to use. What I do is just get a piece of waste yarn. It's a good idea to have it be a different color than the yarn you're using, just so that you don't accidentally knit it into your project. But you can go along the front or the back, it doesn't matter. And you just go through all the live stitches that are on your needle. And you just have to be careful not to catch any of your stitches below, because you don't want it actually connected to your knitting. So just go through all these stitches. Pull it through. And that's it. So now I have a lifeline to use. So if I have to rip out my knitting, say if I knit 10 more rows and I have to rip it out because I made a mistake, when I rip it out it'll stop right here, and then I'll be able to just put the stitches back on the needle and keep on moving. So you just have to be careful that you don't, when you knit with the lifeline in, that you don't actually knit it into your work, because then you won't be able to take it out and it'll be a pain. But if you get to the end of your next repeat and you don't need to use it, then what you do is you just simply pull it through your knitting and put it back on your tapestry needle if you took it off, and just thread it through for at the end of the next repeat. I'll just do a couple rows here so you can see. I'm not used to working on these straight needles. I usually work on circular needles, and they're a little bit shorter to work with. But the metal needles don't show up quite as well on the videos for you guys, so that's why I use the bamboo needles. Okay, so now you can see we've got our lifeline in there. So if I needed, for some reason, to rip out my work, I would just take my work off the needles, unravel it, and it stops right there at the lifeline. So then you would go through and just put all your stitches back on. And this is a lot easier if you have a sharper needle than these bamboo needles. They tend to be a little dull. And then once you've got all your stitches back on the needle, you can just keep right on knitting. And then when you, if you get through another repeat and you don't need to use it, simply pull it out and then thread it through the end of your next repeat. And that's it. That's a lifeline in a nutshell.